Damien Martinez is getting a little bit lost in the depths of this running back class, but this power back absolutely has a skill set that NFL teams are going to want. He might never function as a workhorse, but his power and contact balance mean that he is going to be a valuable part of an NFL offense's running game, being able to score between the tackles and work in the goal line. If you like this content, please consider liking and subscribing. But let's take a little bit of a deep dive into one of the more under-the-radar running backs in this class. The first thing that you notice when you scout Martinez is absolutely that power. He has a bruising running style and is someone that is absolutely willing to dive straight into defenders and try and bowl them over. This makes him very hard to bring down, and he profiles much more as a power back, as more of a 1A to be used on early downs and in the red zone, but not specifically for chunk plays or to be used too much in the receiving game. But he also has fantastic contact balance, which makes him extra hard to bring down as he's able to ping-pong between defenders if they aren't able to tackle him immediately. However, there are also some nice qualities to his game in terms of his vision and his tempo. He has a real eye for cutback lanes and the development of his blocks, and so that vision behind the line of scrimmage is something I was incredibly impressed by. It's particularly when it comes to identifying cutback lanes before they develop. This is something which is a relatively hard skill and something that I was glad to be able to see in his game. This also points towards the short area quickness. Obviously, the ability to cut back on a play means that you have to move laterally. And this is something that I was quite impressed with in his game. As for a bigger back, you normally expect them to just be able to work north-south. And don't get me wrong, he's definitely a north-south back as a whole, but his ability to cut back and display that short area quickness, his footwork is actually more precise and nimble for a back of his size than I anticipated. So I was quite impressed to see this. The other thing I would say is I think he does have good hands, particularly in checkdowns. Now, he wasn't used too much in the receiving game, and he probably won't be in the NFL, but on checkdowns, when the play happens to break down or when he's been brought into pass protect, this was something I was quite impressed with. He's not going to be a plus in the receiving game. We'll get onto this a little bit later, but his hands are relatively good when a pass is into his chest. While Martinez has some areas of his game that I really like, there are definitely some deficiencies, and it mostly just comes down to the things that he can't really do. He is a relatively limited player, someone who is physical and good at working north to south, but not really able to do too much outside of that. The long speed and acceleration are something that I really think he's lacking in. I think particularly he is never going to beat a defender to an edge on a stretch play, and that lack of acceleration and lack of speed just limits the field for him. It shortens the ability of the kind of runs that you can have him use. Basically, he can run between the tackles, but the moment you're trying to get him outside quickly in some kind of outside zone type scheme, he is just not quick enough to be able to beat a linebacker or even a DB to the edge. And this kind of summarizes the issue with his game in total. He is a good back north-south, perhaps even bordering on great, but east to west, he just looks an entirely different player. If you can use him in his limited skill set, this is someone that can definitely be functioned within an NFL offense. But if you have him working the field horizontally and relying on then turning the corner, beating a player at the edge, and beating them in a foot race, he's just not going to work. Now, this is fine. Not every running back has to be able to do everything, but it just limits his upside. The other thing that definitely limits his upside is his work in the receiving game. He is basically incapable of bringing in passes outside of his frame, and my main thing with him is that I think he can work in the receiving game in terms of checkdowns and screens, but he is never going to be a plus in the receiving game. Someone that you can use, but that you're never really going to feature. So for fantasy football, it just really limits his upside as a player, because I don't think you're ever going to want to use him as a 3-down back. My playstyle comparison for him might be my favourite one in all of the rookie videos that I've recorded, and this I think is my 47th, and that's Tank Bigsby. They are basically identical prospects, backs who work in the short yardage game, who are powerful, who can run between the tackles, but that you actively don't want catching passes. Tank Bigsby is potentially even worse than Martinez here because he basically has bricks for hands, but it's someone that you're very happy if you can use them as the Thunder in a Thunder and Lightning combination, but you need them to be off the field on third downs and you never want to feature them in the passing game. And if you look at Tank Bigsby for fantasy, this is what Martinez can definitely be. He may potentially be able to secure a priority backup role and be someone that if the starter goes down, he is someone you want to target. He may even have some standalone value if he's able to get in on red zone downs and able to work in short yardage situations, but he's never going to be a volume RB2. It's more going to be injury based, or it's going to be just because he's able to score a vast amount of touchdowns if he lands on a good offense. In terms of where I think he'll be drafted, I think the lack of upside, but the relatively stable floor, probably places him midway through day 3, maybe towards the back of the 4th or early 5th round. In terms of your fantasy drafts, I think probably the 4th round is about the right spot for him. I think Martinez is going to be a very landing spot dependent player because if he's in a good offense, he could quite easily score double-digit touchdowns depending on the role he's given. But if he's in a bad offense or if he's just backing up someone who is as good in the red zone, as good in short yardage situations, this isn't going to be someone that you're going to want to target. And there are going to be other priority sleepers this far down the board. Let me know your thoughts on Martinez down below in the comments. Is he a priority target for you or someone that you are looking to avoid? And while you're there, like this video, subscribe to the channel, and check out all of the other rookie profiles that I have available. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.